Hey everybody, Gripp here. Here's a little bit about my faith journey. I started playing drums when I was about 6. My mom she had the musical side of the family, so inherited some of that from her. And my brother was a drummer, my older brother was a drummer, and he gave me one of his old Sparta Ludwig sets when I was young. And my parents were kind enough to let me put that in their basement and pound on it all the time and drive the neighbors crazy. And the first gig, the first time I ever played drums in front of people, besides at school and the bands, was we did Godspell at our church, so that was pretty cool. And then when I was 16, I formed my own rock band and had my first gig and kind of had the itch. Decided that's really what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a rock and roll drummer, or really wanted to be a big rock star, right? So at 17, I moved out and really went after the dream and formed my own band, and ended up cutting a CD. I had a small record contract out of California back then, and didn't do a whole lot, but did okay over in Europe, but didn't do a whole lot. By the time I was 35, I kind of decided that I was going to be too old to be a rock star, so I was going to hang it up. And through that time, through church, I was at Bible camp, and I went to Sunday school every Sunday, and was at church a lot because my mom worked there too. So during the summer, that's where I stayed, and I learned about Jesus there. And I said the prayer, and I was baptized as an infant, but I never really had that personal relationship with Jesus until later on in life. As I went through this rock and roll career, I got married very young, had kids very young. I wasn't around very much, and that had took a big toll on my marriage, and eventually ended up ending. My marriage ended. But during that time, I had made all my own decisions, and not a lot of them were good. And I was in a pretty dark place where, had real bad depression, and my marriage is failing, and had a strained relationship with my kids, and just didn't want to be here anymore. And I asked God to save me at that time. That's maybe 16, 17 years ago now. And I was ready to take my own life, and I asked Jesus to come into my life and save me, and He did. He said, "It's not your time," and here I am today, still alive, and I have very strong faith now. About 2 years ago, God was calling me to change, do something different with my music and do something to glorify Him. So I went to Life Fest, and I heard some bands. I haven't really heard Christian music before like that, and I got inspired, but life kind of got in the way, and I never really did anything. About a year ago, I went to Life Fest again, and I think God was saying, "Hey, I don't know why you're not listening to me, but I'm going to use Ben Fuller here as a vessel, and I'm going to have him speak my word to you, and see if that gets you inspired to start writing Christian music for me." And it did. It worked. Very humble, very strong lyrics, and he sang directly to God. So I wrote my first Christian song that weekend, that Sunday morning. When I woke up, I woke my wife up earlier in the morning. I said, "Hey, you got to hear this. I think I wrote my first song." So she said, "No, I'm sleeping." I said, "Come on, you got to get up." So she did, and she listened to it, and she liked it. So eventually I said, "Okay, we're going to do something." We talked about it at great length, and decided that if we were going to do this, we were going to go all in, and we were going to go wherever God took us, and we were just going to follow the path. And He's done some amazing things in the last year. I had to learn how to write Christian music because it was much different than the rock style I had written years ago, and I haven't written music forever. So I did a Google search for Christian songwriting teachers out of Nashville, and I found John Chisholm. He's with Nashville Christian Songwriters, and I took an 8-week course with him, and it ended up going to Nashville and recording a couple songs on the cheap. I think AOK Records had some kind of a deal where for $450 they would record all the music, and you'd come down and sing the vocals, and they'd master it, and they'd send it to you, and you could do whatever you wanted with it. So I went down there and did those 2 songs, When I Pray and He Rescued Me. which I did release early on. And while I was down there, I met John Chisholm, the guy who taught the classes, and he also has this artist development program. And we were talking about that, and he's talking about, you record more music, release more music, maybe go out on tour and play. And I'm thinking, man, that was a whole bunch of years ago for me, I think I'm a little old to be doing that stuff now. And he said, well, you're never too old to spread God's word. I said, well, you can't argue with that. So my wife and I again sat down and had a long, deep discussion about this new venture, because neither one of them were very cheap, and it was a commitment, and we decided to do that. So I went through this artist development program, which was more one-on-one lyrical teaching, and it also brought in a marketing firm to teach me how to market on social media, and it brought in some co-writers and some vocal coaches, and it was great. It was a great class. I wish I would have had it, when I was 25 years old. And in April of this year, I recorded my first Christian EP. It's got 5 songs on it, and then I did an acoustic version of He Rescued Me and put that on there as a bonus track, so it's got 6 songs on it. And that started releasing at the end of July. I've got 3 songs out now, and the other 2 are coming out in the next couple weeks, or a couple months. And in November, the whole EP will release. During that time, between then and now, I got invited to come down to the Objective with Ted Braun, and he runs a company that actually goes out and takes musicians, and they go from state to state and play at skate parks and things like that. This Objective was more for musicians to kind of come down and try out in front of, I think there's a panel of 14 or 15 industry leaders down in Nashville that we played in front of, and I met some really great people there, made some good contacts there. I got to play at a location in Nashville. Also got to play at Commodore in Nashville. That was one of my goals. And through that, I entered a contest called You God's Music, and it started with like 340, 350 people. And I got down to the top 5, and they flew us down to San Antonio, Texas, and we played at the Tobin Center for a sold-out crowd of 1,800 people. So we each got to play a song, the 5 of us, and then there was one winner. Lonnie won it, but it's all good because we just became a big family while we were there, and it really didn't matter after the first day who won, because we all cared so much about each other, even in a short period of time. It was just a great bonding experience. I'm getting ready to shoot a music video here coming up in about 2 weeks on Hello It's Me, and I'm going back in the studio in January to do another EP, and I'm doing a EP release party at my church for EP release concert right before the EP comes out. So that's kind of been my faith journey and my life journey and kind of who I am, and that's me, that's who I am now, and I love Jesus, and I'm not afraid to say it, and I love writing music for God, so that's who I am. What else we got? Oh, what inspired you to pursue a career as a songwriter? Well, what really inspires me about the music career, I mean, it's something it's just in me. I'm a musician, and it's just in my bones. I tried to quit for a little while, and it just kept coming back and coming back. And now that I'm writing Christian music from experiences in my life, the songs have a much deeper and more personal meaning to me. And my goal is not to write music that's going to make $1 million and make me a huge star. I want to write music that helps people, that reaches people, maybe people that wouldn't listen to Christian music. I'm trying to write more of a rock Christian music, not quite Skillet, but though I love Skillet. But to be able to reach some people that may not listen to Christian music, they hear the music, it's a rock beat, it's got a good rock beat, you got guitar solos in it, and wait, what are they saying? I think they're talking about Christians or something in here. So I'm hoping, that my music can reach people like that, touch people that are hurt, help people through tough situations, or just bring more joy in their life or strengthen their relationship and their faith with God. So that's really what's inspiring me to do songwriting now. Is there a story behind the EP or some of the songs on the EP? Well, the EP's titled Rescued, Redeemed, and Forgiven. And the songs really are about salvation. I mean, they're about my journey of salvation, how I've gone from, having faith to trying everything on my own and trusting my own instincts, to realizing that that wasn't working for me, to actually coming back and being stronger in my faith and actually having now that personal relationship with Jesus. So that's really what the EP has evolved around. I mean, the title track is Rescued, Redeemed, and Forgiven. That's a song about salvation. The acoustic version of He Rescued Me is my salvation song. It really talks about the pain that I went through and everything I went through before I actually got saved and actually had that relationship with Jesus, and not just saying I knew Jesus. Slip and Fall is about how we as Christians are not perfect. We're humans. We still struggle with things. We still slip, and fall. But it's all about getting back up, repenting for the sins that you had and trusting your life again to Jesus. And it's about Jesus accepting you back into the fold. He's always there. You just got to reach out and ask him. And then Fearless, it's just about the trials and tribulations I've gone through in my life. And even over just this last 12, 14 months of writing Christian music now, is the strength that I have found in Jesus through some super tough times in my life over the last even 6 months. We've gone through some pretty tough times, and I find now my strength in Jesus, as opposed to blaming God or why me, or it's just I feel fearless in anything I face when I have Jesus by my side. And Hello, It's Me is kind of talks about me when I was a kid, going to church, going out on my own, and then coming back to God and saying, hey, I made a mistake, I'm back, and I am all in, and I'm surrendering everything to you, and hello, it's me, it's me again. So, and then the last song on there is Father Help Me, and that's a lament song, just for some of the tough times that we've gone through over the past 6, 7, 8 months, where sometimes you just don't have words. All you have is tears, and all you can do is surrender everything to God and leave everything in His hands. So that's kind of the EP, and a little bit of story behind each one of those songs. So. Is there any artists that inspire me, or I want to co-write with, or do some collaboration with? Yeah, sure. Well, Ben Fuller, obviously, because that's who God worked through to actually get me to start writing. I actually got to meet him last July at Life Fest before he did one of his shows, so that was super cool. Jeremy Camp, he was the headliner actually at that You God's Music competition in San Antonio. I'd love to do some collaboration with him. And then there's a whole bunch of unknown people that I'd love to collaborate with, and I've actually started collaborating with through either You God's Music or I belong to an organization called CSMI. I've met a lot of artists through there that are just like me, that are trying to do something with their music on a Christian level, and I've met some great people, and I want to do some collaboration, and am doing some collaboration with them right now as well. So, but yeah, Ben and Jeremy, that'd be pretty cool. I'd be all right with that. Kind of feedback have I received from my music? Well, that's an interesting question, because one of the questions I've had is, if you could play anywhere, where would you play? We went and saw Phil Wickham and Brandon Lake in a concert here in Milwaukee about a month or so ago. 8 or 10,000 people there. It's pretty cool. Just to hear everybody singing the songs back. And is that something you'd like to do? Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to do something like that. You know, I played in front of those 1,800 people. It was awesome. That was probably the highlight of my musical career that night. I'm thinking maybe my concert might top that, but right now that's the top of my music career, with one exception. I play this place in Normal, Illinois, which is probably 4.5 hours from here. I have to drive a long ways to play gigs. There's not a whole lot of Christian gigs around here in the middle of Wisconsin, so I do a lot of driving. But I play, it's called The Gathering Place, and Rick runs it. And I was going to Nashville to cut my EP in April, and I found this place on Facebook. They do Christian music every Friday night. So I thought, well, you know, I asked my wife, I said, okay, if we go a little bit out of the way, we're driving a little bit out of the way and stop at this place and just to talk and see if I can get in there, get a gig in there sometime. And we go in, and we're listening, and they took a break right away. So he talked about an open mic thing, so I talked to him a little bit about that and asked what the sign up was, when it was, and things like that. And he goes, well, let's write your name down, and we got another set here, and then when we're done with this, we can talk about it a little bit. I wrote my name down, I gave it to him, and he goes, Howard Gripp. I said, yeah. He goes, you got a song out on Spotify called When I Pray? And I'm looking around like somebody's messing with me, right? It's just, who would know that? I mean, I've never talked to this guy before. We just found this place on Facebook a couple months before, and I just stopped in on a random, just because it was kind of on the way to Nashville. And he said, I listened to, he said, I don't know how I found that song, but I found that song, and I listen to it all the time. And I've played it for 3 or 4 people that are sitting in this room, and my pastors. And he said, I'm a recovering, it's a song about addiction from a parent's perspective, a child that has addiction. And he said, I've battled addiction for many, many years. I've been in the hospital 26, 27, 28 times, and I never really realized what it did to my parents until I heard that song. So he thanked me for that, and man, that was something. I mean, I played in front of 1,800 people, and that was something, but this was something special. This was priceless. And they go back up and they play their set, and he comes walking over to me about halfway through their set, and he goes, hey, I got the girls to end a little early tonight. Would you play that song for me? And I said, well, he said, first he says, you got your guitar with you? And I said, well, yeah, I'm on my way to Nashville. You can't get in Nashville without a guitar. I mean, that's just part of the deal. So he said, well, they said they'd end a little earlier if you would play that song for me. And I said, sure, I'll play it for you. So he got up and he gave his full testimony, which was extremely powerful. And then he introduced me, and I played that song, and I told everyone what that song was about. And it was emotional, it was powerful, it was God-driven all the way. I mean, God was in that room that night. He put us there. Somehow he put us together, and that happened. I mean, I will never forget that for the rest of my life. And that's what I want to do with my music. I want to help people. I want to touch people. You know, I play a 10,000 person arena along the way with actually 10,000 people in it, not just an empty one. That's great, you know, but I will always go back to the Gathering Place in Normal, Illinois, because I will never forget that night, ever. For another one of the greatest musical moments of my life. So that's why I write. That's why I drive 4.5 hours to Normal, Illinois, or 6 hours to Sioux Falls, South Dakota, to New Day Church, my brother's church, to play there. That's why I do it. It's not for the fame and the glory anymore. That was a whole bunch of years ago. So I hope, you know, you guys go out and check out my music. And you know, I've got a webpage out there, howardgrippmusic.com, and I just added a prayer request page. So if you guys need anything you need prayed for, you know, fill out that little prayer request on there, and I can pray for you. If it's big, I have a group of people that can pray for you. you know, and like, follow, listen, share, whatever else they do. You can find me on all my socials. Howard Gripp Music is all my socials. X or Twitter is HGripp Music. So yeah, so that's me. That's my music. That's what I'm trying to do with my music, and I'm just going to let God keep taking me on whatever journey He wants to take me on. I'll go through any door He opens, and I'll walk away from any door He closes. So appreciate all your time, and I hope someday I'll see you out playing somewhere. Until then, peace.